Shumawi, Shatipa, Shumawi. Tupaku, Tumomenene. Tupaku, Tumomenene. Tupaku, Tumomenene. Akelawi, Otselepa. Pale Hoshtin, Helene. Tupamile, Nakolene.
For me, my ancestors, my human ancestors, are a direct connection to that sacred time of creation, with our narratives, And like some people will talk about, well, I pray to God, and for me, it just seems like something that's so powerful that I couldn't have that direct relationship, that I do it through my ancestors. They're a link to my life today. I see them everywhere I go, even if it's in the animals or the plants, I see it everywhere. So it's not something that's just in the distant past that you can easily forget. It's almost like an umbilical cord that you have attached to the land or attached to those ancestors, and it's always going to link you. No matter where you go, it's always going to be there.
We're just trying to make ourselves whole again. This is who our ancestors used to make and do. We learn from textbooks, some people learn from visual. So I believe that's best, that's the reason why for repatriation is this. It's just that sense of being a whole again. We're fragmented as Indian people, and there's pieces of us all over the world now because some of the stuff has just gone to different places. A lot of tribal communities lost so much information and lost a lot of connection, and we had to stop being who we are as people and start becoming as someone else. So repatriation for many tribes is just as simple as bringing things back home.
Native people were sold off down into the blocks, such as down in Los Angeles at what is now known as La Plaza, were sold off to rancherias and made to work. So in the 1950s, we see assimilation policies through boarding schools, through relocation and termination, and then we also see the state impinging on sovereignty or moving into reservation territories.
But I knew the importance of getting on the inside, because so many times if you stand on the outside and try to make change, well, which is also important too, but getting on the inside, and I think you can be real effective. Could we make archaeologists understand that our worldview was just as important as their needs, as well as perhaps we can educate them?
So I represent my tribe, Pechanga, on cultural resources issues, preservation of sacred sites. And I've had archaeologists ask me point blank, so are you trying to change the entire practice of archaeology? I am trying to highlight that this is a study about a culture and a group of people that are still alive. And those perspectives and those viewpoints should be incorporated in any decisions that are being made about either resources or how you would write up an ethnographic account or how you would portray the definition of an item or a site or a resource, that you have people living that have indigenous knowledge, which, yes, may not be rooted in written history, but is rooted in an oral history that's valid, is rooted in indigenous value systems, life ways that are still current and still being practiced. And that information is equally as valid as whatever scientific or archaeological information is being brought to the table.
We're taken out and they were violated in such a traumatic way that it created something on the land too when that's done. Because once we send those ancestors off, and whether it's a burial or a cremation, it's never meant to be taken out. And so when those are taken out, it creates this imbalance on the land and in our families, in our communities. You know, and then you go through these stages where you become really angry and you become pissed off at everyone and everybody for coming over here and doing this. But then you have to channel that anger, right? And you have to do it in a positive way. And mine was through education, and that's the way I channeled it. I went down my path. You take on all these things, right? You take on all these forms of transgenerational trauma through addiction, through anxiety, depression. And I think maybe that's what saved a lot of them, is because they don't know the things that I know. Because I've had to deal with those things, and it's not easy. When you're living in the belly of the beast and you're surrounded by this, and you know what you know about your history, you think that's what kind of saved your family and the communities. Because if they would have known, how would they have dealt with it?
They feel those ancestors come to them. It's like open the door and that whole breath of new air comes through. It just hits you. And I see a lot of people get taken back by that, where they walk into a room and never realize the magnitude of that repatriation signs or what's inside that room. And some people have no idea what it is. It could be as simple as a basket, and I've seen some folks tear up and find a connection to them just by looking at a fragment of a basket. It's like something that just came to them, whispered in the ear, and told them what that was. And so that's why I feel that spirituality, it really drives home a lot of people who are finding themselves or rediscovering a lot of traditional values, because a lot of Native people were converted to Christianity, Catholicism. So it goes back to, we lost a lot of Native traditions, and so when something like that comes in, it amps them up to do more. And I think that's the reason that's a good reason for why every member of the tribe should participate in repatriation, and that's a really good spiritual connection to them. It grabs a hold of their hearts and their minds and tells them, this is who you are.
An MLD, you're kind of like the spokesperson of the tribe, of course, with the involvement of the tribe, with input of the tribe, that, hey, I've been notified, I'm an MLD, as you all know. How do we treat this discovery of human remains or the artifacts? Or so with their guidance also, then I'm able to step forward and discuss with the landowner or developer or archaeologist, this is what we want, this is how we want it, and we give them procedures and guidelines on how we want the ancestors put in a certain position in their burial plot, wrapped in cloth or leathers, how to put the personal artifacts in the burial plot around them. So it's something that we've learned from past MLDs, the elders, and I'm glad that I was able to be assigned MLD for our tribe.
Before all the laws came into play, NAGPRA and everything, a developer could get a piece of lot like this, and they didn't have to have a native monitor, they didn't have to have an archaeologist, they didn't have to have anything, and they could just bulldoze through a burial. And believe me, they did. Back in the early days, there was a lot of that, more than should have been. But and for a long time, and those developers didn't want us on that site, and you could feel that resentment. In the early years, I felt it a lot,
it didn't bother me because I knew that I had a right to be there and I was going to be there. But a lot of times you could just sense um, the resentment, I guess, for a better word. You know, they were just resentful that we were there, and then much less maybe getting paid for it.
In the memory of our ancestors. To protect archaeological sites where we know that there's, there was villages there or there was life at one time there. I feel that it's important that tribes should do their research and record all these sites and record them and with the Sacred Lands file at the Native American Heritage Commission.
Also, I think in the words of my teacher, Dave Bellardus, and I have to use his stern voice, stick it out, learn from your elders, be tough. It won't ever get any easier, so be prepared to work long and hard to the end.
Everything we do is in the memory of the ancestors.
Ya